Everybody. It is so exciting to have you all here live in the Mortgage Coach community. I am Todd Bookspan, founder of Win by Noon, and on behalf of Dave Savage, the CEO of Mortgage Coach, welcome to our Friday Productivity Mastermind. I'm joined today by $100 million producer Michelle Town, who's via phone and will be on via video shortly. Welcome, Michelle.
Happy Friday, everybody.
There she is. And so always excited to have Michelle here. And more importantly, I'm excited to have this guy next to me. We're sitting down. This is my new office, so it's not quite all the way set up yet with beautiful street view of Central Avenue in Phoenix. And this is my good friend, Steve Chater. And hopefully some of you saw the bio I did on him, and it was probably only half of what he did. But I was just talking to Michelle and kind of introducing her to Steve. And I tell you that I've known Steve now probably for about a decade almost, and I consider him to be really one of the greatest leaders I know. So when I'm looking for leadership, he's the guy that I turn to and I follow for leadership. But I would tell you that within the industry, he's known for having a real estate team that did over 400 units a year, for owning Keller Williams franchises, owning a property management company, owning a title company, and for this, he's the co-author of the Keller Williams book, Hold. And so Steve and I, back in my originating days, did classes. I think the last one we did was, it was a while ago, but we had, I think, over 150 realtors there teaching them how to sell investment property to their clients. So what I would encourage you guys to do, if I can see my notes here from, maybe not on TV, but you can see my notes. I had Steve on my radio show a couple of times back in the day when I did a radio show. So what I leave out, Steve, anything else I should be telling these great folks about you?
That's enough, except I'm a grandfather, have two great-grandchildren, or not great-grandchildren, but they're great children.
I was like, wait, okay, all right.
I'm not that old.
He's also 6'6", and so that's why we're sitting down, so that I look like I'm almost as tall as he is.
Yeah.
And and he plays guitar in a band. So he was scoping out our office and was already saying that he would play our grand opening party. So any of you in Phoenix, I'll make sure that you get the invite. But I'll tell you, I was bragging about our community. And so, we definitely got some questions from some of you about realtors and how to acquire realtors. But I would encourage you guys to use chat. And I would encourage you guys to ask questions of Steve, because he's got some of the best agents in the country in his office. And then I've got friends like my friend Justin Harris, who's an originator in Alaska, who said, I met your buddy Steve. He came up here and taught a class. And so he teaches classes all over the country. He knows realtors all over the country better than any of us, all of us put together probably. So if you guys got questions, we've got chat open right here. We would love to answer those questions. And, again, remember, this is about you guys. I bragged. I told them this was a great community, and you guys were here to learn. And so Marcy's monitoring Facebook Live. Those of you who are there, if you've got questions, type them there, and she'll make sure that I get those. And we're just going to start spitballing. Michelle's going to interrupt us if she's got ideas or questions. But the number one question that we've received so far when I go to my notes is, how do we get a meeting with realtors, right? We're going to start really basic, because I know that's what you guys care about. And we want to talk about what gets their attention, and then maybe a little bit of what makes them mad. So you tell me, you guys get hit up all the time by loan officers. I know it gets a little bit annoying, but what would actually get the attention of a realtor if you're a loan officer?
Let me start with what doesn't get my attention.
All right.
Okay, and it's an email introduction.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Yeah, I think email's great. To hide behind.
Right, to hide behind, right. Email introductions are like, hey, I see you're doing well or whatever, and I'd like to have a moment of your time, and so my BS meter goes up like this the minute that somebody asks me for that. Because quite frankly, I don't have a moment of time for somebody that I don't know. So, I have to go all the way back to, how does a realtor build their business, or how does anybody build their business? And it's people do business with people that they like and trust.
Absolutely.
Right? So how do you build like and trust with a real estate agent? And I was talking with a loan officer the other day who had moved to the Phoenix area from out of state, didn't know anybody, was very successful where she grew up because she knew everybody. And so it's like, well, how do you create relationships with people? And so there's a guy named Larry Kendall who owns a real estate company up in Fort Collins, Colorado. And he teaches a model of conversation called FORD, F-O-R-D. And FORD is an acronym for, the F stands for family. So the first conversation is about family, and then occupation, and then what are the things you like to do for recreation, for fun, and then the last one is, what are your dreams or desires? Where do you want to go? How did you get started with this? And so with a real estate agent, I'd start with the D. I'd start with the dreams and desires because you don't know them. They don't want to have a conversation with them about the family or the occupation. It's like, tell me why you got your real estate license. But if you're taking that FORD and going backwards with a real estate agent, having that conversation, it's like, why did you get a real estate license? Tell me what you did before that. What do you intend to have happen with the real estate license? Somebody came to me one time, I was building my team, and I was one of the top 5 agents in the Phoenix market. And so they came to me and started asking questions about, hey, why are you building a team and what's your team look like? And at that time, now we're talking in the 1980s, but at that time, nobody had teams. And so he was curious. And then he asked me a question that's an impact question. So that's the second key. The first part is Ford, F-O-R-D, but do it backwards. The second one is the impact questions that you're asking. Because most lenders come in and want to talk about their company and what their company does.
I do FHA loans, I do VA loans. We're really good at those too.
Exactly.
We got good rates too.
Yeah, exactly. Good for you. Yeah, good for you. So,
so what's an example of an impact question?
So an impact question. So what he asked me was, he said, so who at your company is helping you get there?
That's awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I was at the #1 company in Phoenix, Arizona, with the top producers in the entire area. And that impact question caused me to realize that where I was not getting me to where I wanted to go. So
that's huge.
Yeah.
Change the trajectory of your life based on where you are today.
Absolutely. And so it's the first time in my life that I realized that, oh, wait a minute, everything that I have here is status quo, and that's awesome. There's nothing wrong with it. And it's good, but I wanted to go to great. And so when I was asked the question, who's helping you get there? It caused a paradigm shift. And the answer was nobody. Now, the mistake that he made was he tried to close the sale. Okay. And so after he asked that question, I said, nobody. He said, well, I'd like to apply for the job. BS meter went up like this. Who are you? Why would I even talk to you? What do you got? Right. All of those questions. So, but it's the ability to ask the impact question. So how do you build like and trust? What I teach real estate agents is it's the buyer consultation that creates the like and trust. It's your ability to ask a question, shut up and listen, and then ask the second question about what their answer is, and ask the third question about what their answer is, going deeper, because people love to talk about themselves.
They do. They're really good at that.
Yeah, exactly. And so the more that you allow them to talk about themselves, the more that they start to trust you, and the more that they start to like you, because most people don't take time to listen to them.
You know, it's funny that you say that, because that's what I found when I first started in the business. I would just show up and throw up all over the realtors.
Right.
And then I realized that one of the most successful presentations that I did that was impactful to me was I got up at a real estate meeting, and a great loan officer went before me, and she said, I work for XYZ company, and kind of what I said before, we do FHA loans and VA loans. We got competitive rates. We're really good at doing loans. And it was true. But everyone was kind of snoozing in the audience. And then I got up after her and I said, gosh, you know what? She is awesome. And she's great. That's why she's here. I said, and we do those things too. But I'll tell you what, I said, who here has all the leads they can handle? No hands went up. I said, who here then would like to get more leads? And then there was, 3/4 of the room were paying attention. They raised their hand. The other quarter, that's the group that's too embarrassed to raise their hand. I said, that's what I do. I help real estate agents figure out where in their business they need to grow, and I can help generate more leads. So if you're interested in that, then come see me afterwards. And sure enough, the line was aligned to talk to me afterwards and not to her. And I felt like, all right, if you can ask a great question, impact them in such a way, that'll get them going. So, all right, so forward, backwards, which I've never heard the backwards part. So that was cool. Impact question. Yeah. What else?
That's a big deal. So once I started getting busy, so one of the things that happens is, as I've observed, is loan officers go to brand new agents because new agents are easy and they don't know what they're doing. And so any kind of offer of help, they're willing to take it because they don't know what they're doing.
They got time too.
Yeah, they got time.
They like free lunches.
Yes, exactly. Coffee. Exactly. So once I started getting busy, then the issue was service. So I remember the first, actually, he was awesome. I remember the first loan officer who came to me and said, this is what I'm going to do. He goes, I am going to call you on Tuesday. Your time is at 1 o'clock. And so we will have a conversation about all of the deals that we have Tuesday at 1 o'clock.
And you pick the time even.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
It was scheduled, and this is when I was going to talk. And so then my MO for building trust with my clients was, I believe that business is done in the office. I get more price reductions, better pricing. I get more transactions done because I bring people into the office, and that's where they work. So I would have him come in on the buyer consultation and be a part of this initial dreaming with the buyer. Tell me about what you're looking for. And so backyard, you say you want a big backyard. So what does a big backyard look like? Are you throwing a football or are you hitting a baseball in the backyard, right?
Nice.
Right. So helping them dream forward. And then the loan officer is part of that dreaming conversation. So it becomes a team.
Yeah, love that.
And it worked out really great. You don't do that with everybody. You have to do that with somebody that's busy.
Yeah, so think about that, right? You know, I mean, again, we're here as part of the mortgage coach community. You can go in there too, and then you've got the opportunity as you transition that conversation to pull up mortgage coach on their TV in the realtor's office and use the technology and tools that are available to you in the business to then show your area of expertise, right? And we've talked about it before on this call, right? Jen Duplessis has talked about the fact that, you know, her conversion rate over the phone is in like the high 30s, 40% range, but her conversion rate after she meets with a client face-to-face is in the high 80s to 90%. And I hear that over and over. And so again, think about what Steve's saying, right? Customer experience with your customers, but what's a better step than that? Get them out of your office and get them over into their office.
Absolutely. You know, I was part of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent and part of the Millionaire Real Estate Investor book. And one of the things that we realized in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, just to make your point a little more, is that if you got, I'm talking about the agent. So if the agent gets a lead and they go out and show them the property and do the way an average real estate agent does, they got about a 30% conversion rate. If they take them to a buyer broker agreement, which means they've met with them, they talked with them what fiduciary means, and they've made a commitment, goes to 65%. So they've more than doubled their odds just by doing one thing and making that happen. So when I brought my loan officer in, so what was the key for me with that was that the loan officer said, let me come on the appointment. Now, when you talk about that mortgage product that you've got where you put up the loan scenarios, you've got the opportunity to educate me at the same time you're educating the client.
Absolutely.
Because most agents have no clue.
Well, and remember, right, again, Dave's not here, so he would plug it, so I'll just do his job, right? Mortgage Coach makes it so easy to copy the agent too afterwards as you do everything. So again, I'd be thinking about this, right? I mean, this is teamwork, right? Teamwork makes the dream work. Someone's asking again what the R in Ford is. That's recreation. So what do they do for fun, right? And so that's a great piece to keep in mind.
You know what? Let me just address that because I do this all the time. When I'm meeting people that I know already, I don't start with family and occupation. I'll come up to Todd and say, hey, Todd, what are you doing for fun nowadays?
Yeah.
Okay. And they're expecting a business conversation or, hey, how are you or whatever. And you can literally see their eyes shift. And it's like, oh, I just took them out of their paradigm into what are you doing for fun nowadays? Yeah. And it's amazing how many people struggle to come up with an answer.
Well, I mean, I talk about a lot like especially around holidays, right? I mean, hey, what are you doing fun for 4th of July, right? I mean, you have all these opportunities. 9 times a year, there's a holiday in a month that someone's going to do something with, right? And maybe it's an open house, but then again, that's an opportunity to jump in, and help them there as well. So I think it's, again, critical, the conversation. I think that one of the other challenges is that is just getting that initial meeting. So you said email doesn't work. And I do think it's hard, right? You're not going to, I'm assuming you're not going to respond to a text message or a Facebook Messenger saying, hey, Steve, can we hang out?
Right. I'm not. I'm too busy.
Right.
And I'm looking for people that are productive already.
And you're not going to probably answer my call if I'm a new loan officer. Or is there something I could say if I got you on the phone and I didn't know you to get you to meet with me or no?
So yeah. Do you have leads?
Okay. So, and that's a great one, right? So again, if you're doing annual mortgage reviews and you've got a client who's looking to buy, we've heard that time and time again, a realtor will be happy to talk to you, right? Hey, Steve, I've got a pre-qualified buyer for $300,000. Would you help them? That would work. What about,
let me share another statistic. You got a thought?
Nope. Go.
Okay. So the National Association of Realtors says that it's about 80 or 87% of the people that a realtor's done business with would do business with them again if they could only remember their name. And the realtors don't, and so the actual statistic is it's like 25% actually do. So there's like a 60% gap, total gap. So if there was a refinance opportunity for one of my clients, and you came up to me and said, Steve, when was the last time you talked to your clients about maybe should they refinance or what's your loan? And you said, you know what, you want me to call them?
Sure, I'd love you to.
Okay.
What if I already called them though? I mean, in my case, I would have already called them first and said, hey, Steve, I talked to the Jones family. They got a bunch of equity and they're thinking about moving. Again, another great opportunity if I'd worked with you in the past.
Right.
What about, I always was looking.
Yeah, but wait a minute. What about, we don't have that relationship yet.
Yeah,
you
so I
haven't
have
worked
to
with
send
them in
you
that.
somebody.
You maybe, or you're calling me up and saying, even brand new real estate agents, have you touched your sphere of influence with regard to what are their loans? You want to have a conversation? Let's bring this team together in a conversation for our people to add value to their lives. Maybe they need it, maybe they don't.
So you'd be open for that conversation?
Absolutely. And then what you're getting into my database now. Right.
Well, so, and I love that idea. And I still think the biggest push always is getting a hold of the person. So I think, you know, to me, part of my gut is who do you know who knows who you need to know, right? So, you know, referral, right? Right. So, you know, all the time I get referrals from people that say, hey, you know, hey, Steve, my name's Todd Bookspan. You know what? I was talking to Dave Savage and he said I should give you a call. And so if we got in your intro, you might call me back because I was referred in, right? The know who you know. And then I think the other part is to show up. So for me, I would tell you if I was out there trying to get Steve's business right now and I know Steve plays in a band, you know, I know he's playing in the Battle of Bands coming up. I promise you I would be going to the Battle of Bands and I would be introducing myself to Steve. And I wouldn't be like, I'm a loan officer, let's meet. I would just be introducing myself to him, saying you guys were awesome. Because then if I did a good job, right, I would, you know, probably friend him on Facebook, maybe not. And then I would figure out how to get in front of him again. Then I could call him and say, hey, Steve, it's Todd Bookspan. I met you at the Battle of Bands. Are you open to have a cup of coffee so I can learn a little bit more about you and your business? Would that work? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, it could if you're coming up with credibility.
Right.
Right. And I don't even have to know what the credibility is. You can almost smell desperation on somebody.
Yeah, and that's rough.
Yeah. And so if you're coming up interested in me and saying, you know what, I'm building my business, what can you help me with?
Yeah. What about, so the comments we're getting are things like, hey, I'm just too busy, right? I can't meet with a loan officer, right? You know, they all have another lender already.
Well, so let me go back to, because the way that you just demonstrated the referral and said, hey, Dave Savage told me I should give you a call. The real way to get the referral is if Dave's going to help you build your business, it's saying, Dave, would you call Steve and tell him I need to talk to Todd?
There you go. So you would take that call then if it was one of your friends?
Totally.
Even if you didn't need another loan officer?
Absolutely. If Dave's calling me up and saying, hey, you know what, you need to talk to Todd, I would go with that.
All right.
And that's how, as agents, that's how we tell people to get referrals is not will you give them my card. You always ask for permission to have Steve call them. Yeah. Does that make sense?
No, that's huge. I think that's key. So I'm hoping that you are all listening here to that. I mean, again, there's no silver bullet. I still think the bottom line is until I get in front of Steve, and I've shaped,
well, that's how you're going to get in front of me.
Then I'm going to do it. So I do think you have to figure out where is he going to be? How's he going to be there? If you don't know, like if it's truly some cold person out there, don't send emails, right? I agree with him. You know, you guys hear me talk about it all the time. That's just not the way to do business up front. You know, someone says, can you really go more into your sphere of influence idea again? So the part where you said, hey, let me, you know, how we're going to share your database with me to help you with that. Let's go back through that one.
Okay, so my thinking on that was somebody who's relatively new in the business, maybe they've got a deal or two or something, so you see some activity and you're going to them and saying, let me help you create more business inside of your sphere of influence. And they go, well, what do I do? What do I call them? What do I say?
What do you mean?
Right. And so part of the conversation is, should they, can they refinance? If they're older, have their kids done it? So the conversation is, you know what? I'm calling up Sally and I'm saying, hey, Sally, I've got Todd with me here. And Todd is a phenomenal loan officer. And I'm just calling to see, have you looked into refinancing your home and whether that makes sense?
So what percentage of realtors would be open to that, doing that with a loan officer?
Well, if they're Okay, so I've only
So I
been,
heard you say that they were newer agents. They weren't really busy. Like if you're doing 400 transactions a year, you're not going to sit there with me and we're going to value agents together.
no.
Right.
No, I'm talking about getting relationship with somebody that you see some activity and they're like, they got to here and they're stuck. And so how do you differentiate yourself? You know, everybody else is coming out saying, I do FHAVA, right? And we'll give you good rates or we'll give you good service.
Well, and so I think here's sort of the action plan, folks, right? Let's kind of spitball this, right? So you have an agent that you've maybe talked to and hasn't given you the time of day. Hey, Mr. Agent or Miss Agent, hey, you know what? I was just on this. I just heard a realtor today, right? And he's a big agent out in Arizona, and he has a strategy that he said you might be interested in, right? And walk them through what you could do with them and bring them something new. Now, I would also throw on there, some are going to say, gosh, I just don't have time to do that. Then you can certainly offer it up, but you have to think through how that's going to be. You have to think through what's their script, because they don't know the script. You have to write the script for them. And then you have to think through, you know, how are they going to do it? Because here's the silver lining, right? That's not mentioned yet. The silver lining, and we've heard it before on these calls, is that a huge percentage of those people are going to be looking to sell their home or buy a new home in the next 12 months. And so the other part is you're getting that agent in touch again with their sphere. You're adding value to their sphere. And so it's just one more benefit to them to help them grow their business. Go back to what I said before. I help agents increase their business. And so this is just another strategy. And again, I don't think if you talk to 10 agents, all 10 are going to go, that's awesome, let's do it. But I bet you get a few who would, and that's all that matters, right? It's probably a few more than you currently have.
We'll go back to the National Association of Realtors, right? 80-some% said, yes, I would use this real estate agent. 20-some% actually did. And so if all you did was put somebody in the pipeline to go from the 80 to 20, or the 20 to the 8, whatever it is, right? Like, all of a sudden, the person that you want to get business from is getting more business to give to you because of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those pieces. And again, it gives you an opportunity to explain to them about your annual mortgage review process. Again, you have to have one and be doing it in order to make that happen. But I think that there's a ton of different ways you can take this idea and figure out how to make it your own and and pitch it out here. And so I think that that's the key. It all comes back to adding value and figuring out how to help them. And so if you're asking those right questions about their business and how they're going to build it, you're going to know, are they building it with their sphere, right? If that's one of their dreams, if you're asking the right questions, those impact questions that Steve was talking about, you're going to start to go down the path of what's important to them. Obviously, if you talk to someone who says, oh, I just deal with online leads and I don't have time to meet with my clients, you have to decide, are you going to challenge them on that and say, well, what do you think about this idea that I heard, or whether you're going to jump in and try to, come up with some other strategy. So I'm excited to see my friend Michelle Town online. So at any point, Michelle, that you've got a question for Steve or comments, jump on in. And you guys, I'm getting some Q&A and stuff on here. So I like that, and getting great camera advice from Will. So appreciate that. How about any other things on the realtor piece that you guys want to know? Because then I'm going to switch. I've got Steve, who's an expert on how to help clients and realtors with investing. And if I don't go that route, then I'm doing you all a disservice and not bringing that piece in. Any other thoughts any of you have? Any last minute things from you, or should we just jump in on investors?
I think investors is a big deal. I wrote a book on it.
So again, they are a big deal. He wrote this book called Hold, which is how to buy, find, rent, and rent houses for wealth. And so just to give a little bit of an idea of how long you've been an investor, about your property management company, how many homes you manage, that kind of thing.
So let me tell you the reason why I wrote the book. The book is written kind of like a self-help book for somebody that wants to invest in real estate, and how do I do it safely. The real reason for that book to be written is for realtors and lenders to build their business by helping other people build wealth. So we wrote that book. We wrote that book as something that they should be giving away to their client and saying, all right, here, read this book. Is this something you want to do? I want to help you make that happen. So I actually teach a course around the concepts in the book, and it's called Building Your Business by Helping Others Build Wealth. And we know that people that come from contribution do better than people that are takers. And that's part of the contribution. I got started in it because I moved from New York down to Phoenix, And I didn't know anybody at all, but I saw, and I started learning about the opportunity that real estate creates for someone. And so I called back, and I had my friends, I had my dad, I had my grandfather get involved in real estate investing. And of course, then they said, well, we'll do it if you manage the property for us. So we have a large commercial property management company now, as well as residential. And so we work with hundreds of investors at this point in time. I do not recommend that real estate agents get into property management. I recommend that they get a great lender to work with, a great property manager to work with, a great CPA, a great financial planner, all people that know and understand real estate investing. Well, what do they need to know and understand? Well, the simple concepts are in that book. There's more complicated concepts. These are the simple, safe concepts that people feel comfortable saying, okay, I want to do this.
Well, so it's kind of interesting, right? And I love it here because Graham says that he read the book, all in caps, loved it, and then it's on next to his wife's bed. So that's,
thank you.
That's really awesome. And
Hey,
so,
give me a review on Amazon.
There you
Appreciate
go. Perfect.
That.
There you go. All right. Great action plan there. And so, for me personally, so let me just kind of rewind my business. When I got into business, you guys have heard the story before, but I'll always repeat it because I know there's always new faces here. First and foremost, I bought Mortgage Coach literally on my first day in the business. And I was just coming out of school getting my MBA, so people considered me smart, even though I really wasn't. But that's okay. But I also did own a rental property. And so, number one is that it's really great if you've been an investor yourself, because that gives that level of credibility. So first you should be reading this, I think, and seeing how can you apply this in your personal life. I think there's a great opportunity there. But even if you don't own rental property, you guys have the best tool out there to show your expertise by using Mortgage Coach as that tool. And so keep that piece in mind, because that was really my niche when I first started out, was working with investors, because I knew numbers and I actually liked people. And so what we're seeing is I'm seeing a resurgence in that right now in the Arizona market. Steve's out there teaching it. You just taught in Chicago recently.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's a great way to bring people together. I do think we had a great question here. How can the lender help a property management company that has 1,000 roofs they manage?
Get in touch with the clients and find out if refinancing makes sense for them.
So talk about that for a second. So do you think most property management companies would be open to sharing their clients' information, or do you think they just need to arm them with a script and material to send their clients?
Not even script and material. I would put on a webinar or an event or something to say, here we have somebody that's a loan strategist. By the way, I tell people you need somebody that's a loan or mortgage or debt strategist is the way that I say it. So how do I productively manage the debt? And create an opportunity for those people to come. That adds value to the property manager because their business is now adding value to their clients that way. At the same time, you're lead generating through that.
Yeah, and so I think that's awesome. Again, you're just thinking, it goes back to the other idea. How do you help them with their clients? Because when their clients refinance, he's adding value if they're saving money.
Right.
They're also potentially pulling cash out and buying more property, right? So again, you can use Mortgage Coach to explain leverage and how leverage works. We see that over and over again.
We literally had a client that just refinanced $150 million on a commercial project.
$150 million.
$150 million.
And what do they do with that money? Buy more property or something different?
They refinance it to lower their payments. So there you go. If you even look at and by the way, in commercial financing, by the way, and I don't know if everybody does commercial, but in commercial, you typically have a 5 or 10 year, and then they got to do something different, right? So staying in front of them and making that opportunity. You guys get referrals for referring business back and forth to people?
No, we have a little different business, and we got a little thing called REST that we all follow. I didn't say that out loud. Yeah. We do, especially in this group. But
we do too. I didn't know.
You do too, but yeah, you guys have different referral business that we don't have in the mortgage space. And my guess is if we surveyed this, folks, there's probably not a ton of people here who do.
No, can you do it between
commercial
each other? I don't mean referring to the
No,
agent.
we can't. I mean, it's really kind of a.
Well, the thing is, what are we talking about? We're talking about adding value to the client.
Right.
And we're talking about how do you build your business by adding value to those clients. And so that's just, whoever got that loan, that was awesome. They found an insurance company to lend the money, all of that kind of stuff. But most people and most property management companies have single family, duplex, triplex, fourplex, and that's pretty simple to do. When you hear the ads on the radio, and you hear people talking about, have you refinanced your home yet? And what would it make a difference if you saved $100 or $200 a month? Have you even looked into it? All of that kind of stuff. It's like, that's the message that's going out. It's about, can I save you money?
Well, and so, I mean, again, think about it. I know some of you are saying, well, yeah, but I don't think this guy knows that rates have gone up. I'll tell you, he does.
Yes. Yes,
but, you know, there still are people out there who are long-term renters that a lot of these people have who literally set it and forget it and aren't doing anything. And I do know loan officers that are successfully doing this. They've teamed up with property managers, and I know that they have done it both ways. I love Steve's webinar idea, but I do know people who literally have loan officers calling with permission from the companies into these companies, and they're really looking to see if the people, where the people are at with their current mortgages. And so they are getting refinance opportunities. They're finding people who want to sell and just be done. And they're finding people who have referrals or want to buy more properties. They're getting those back. And the statistic I heard from one of my friends in a different market up north, he said that in the first quarter, they referred in more buyers out of their current rental pool in that quarter than the company had sold properties to the previous year. So, and they had just started and they were getting ready to roll it out a lot more. So just think through, there's probably some strategy we can dig in maybe on a further call, but
let's talk about rates for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. No question, rates have gone up, refinances have gone down because you don't have 3% anymore and all of that. When we did the research on the book, so that's a historical perspective. When we did the research on the book whole, we found out that over time, the average rate was about 6%. And so we're well below the 6% at this point in time. And there's a YouTube video by Warren Buffett. He's being interviewed. And one of the, and so the lady on, I think it's on MSNBC, a YouTube video with Warren Buffett on investing in real estate. You can look it up. And she said, and what we know is Warren Buffett made his money in buying stocks. So she said, if you were young and you were thinking about buying a house, what would you do and what advice would you give to them right now? And one of the things is he goes, well, first of all, I'd buy a house and I would get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage on it and I would hold on to these low interest mortgages. And then he said, if I knew where I was going to live for the next 4 to 5 years, I'd buy a couple of them and lock in the low interest rates that we have today because, and then at Investor Talk, he's saying, because it's a great way to short the dollar. Okay, now that's investor talk. Yeah. Most people don't know and understand that. But here they got this guy that made all of his wealth in buying stocks saying, if you're a young couple, what would you do? So I have a friend of mine, he's in Toronto, Canada, and he does about 150, 160 million in sales every year. And every time that he deals with a first-time home buyer, he's going in and said, congratulations, you've made your first investment in real estate. This is not where you're likely to stay, but I want you to hold it. And so then we can make the next investment. So there's also another reason to refinance, not just to lower the payment, but some people have a lot of equity and they want to do something different. And the mindset is that it's good for them to have equity in their property. It's good for them to pay off the property. But if they're in a growth mindset, then the question is, well, how do I use debt productively to move me towards my goals? And so that's a whole second conversation. And the tool that you have to say, you know, here's your payback period, and if you use this mortgage or this mortgage, you become a strategist with them, helping them achieve what they want, pulling equity out of. And by the way, some people have parents with properties, and the parents are, and they're free and clear. And quite frankly, I think that they should be considering pulling out equity in a reverse mortgage, so that they don't increase, but using the money to purchase an income property.
So you're listening to a guy who's full of strategies. I would throw a couple of things out there that I think are necessary. Number one is read his book because it's got all this in there, but you've got to also be able to talk intelligently about it. Like I said, if you don't own an investment property, no worries, but you need to understand the tax benefits of having an investment property. You need to understand, how does that work? What does a property management company charge, right? You can interview property management companies to see what they're doing with their clients. You need to understand, what is a 1031 exchange? So if you talk to someone who says, hey, my property has depreciated fully, what should I do? That you understand what they're saying, why they're saying it, and what to do with it. So there's lingo that you need to know, and there's a ton of information out there. My guess is, again, go out there and he talked about YouTube, right? There's got to be probably someone who even talks about the book on there as well. who can give you a little bit of education, but then you probably know people in your market who are known for being realtors who work with investors. And I wouldn't be afraid to approach them and then ask them for advice, right? Hey, what would you do? What kind of recommendations would you give to someone? Someone circled back and just wanted us to talk again about how does it benefit for me to call or for us to call your clients together if you're a management company. Let's just go through that one more time.
Okay. So let's start with this. I recommend that people use a management company that does not list or sell properties. That's my recommendation. Okay. And so what is the goal of that management company? It's to maximize the value of their client's investment. And so whatever the goal was for that client to do an investment, if their management company becomes more than just the, we got the toilet fixed or we got a new garbage disposal or the sprinklers broke, if they become part of the strategy to help that client build wealth, there's a reason that client has an investment property. And so, so if you bring the lender together, which is part of the debt management, you bring the realtor together, which is part of what kind of additional opportunities are there, and you're having that conversation, the management company that does not list or sell, if you found a good one there, that's the biggest problem that real estate agents have in even thinking about working with investors, because all they've heard are the horror stories from the management companies. And what I found, Todd, is usually it's somebody who's trying to sell real estate and manage it. And so here's the big commission, here's the little thing, what do they pay all their attention to?
Absolutely, right? And then their other part is they're worried that they refer in, I sell them a house, they're my client, I refer them over to a company that's also buying and selling property, then they're going to try to poach the sale down the road or steal their business versus protecting it, right? So again, that's really good advice as you're reaching out there and finding these other companies, because again, oftentimes a good management company will have they'll have requests from their clients, hey, I live in New York, you guys are in Arizona, who do you know that could help me with my mortgage out there? And so these are just things you got to think about.
So right now,
opportunity.
My property management company has between 400 and 500 single family homes.
That's a lot.
And so every month, a certain number of those homes are coming up for sale, especially in this market, because people are looking and they're saying, wow, I finally got some equity back in my home. Okay. At the same time, the biggest challenge in this market is to find inventory. In most markets around the country, there's not enough homes on the market. So if the property management, if you're bringing a relationship with a property management company to a real estate agent that has a sphere of influence, and that relationship is, oh, you want another opportunity? I probably have 10 properties that I know the lease is going to be up in the next 30 to 60 days, and I know that the seller wants to sell. Now, what about the rest of them? So let's say I have 10 properties, but I've got 450 other people over here that might want to buy one of those properties there. You and your agent can put that, or you and the property manager and the agent can put that opportunity together for them. So there's a huge strategy, and the whole point of it is, what benefits does it bring the property management company? If I can add value to my client's investment and my client's life, then I'm more valued as a property management company.
So there's a few things here, right? Number one, there's opportunity for you personally, right? If you're not investing and you're in this mortgage business, then I would say, well, why not? Number two is you got an opportunity to help your clients grow wealth, right? I mean, that's the word that Steve intentionally uses about growing wealth. And then the third is you can actually help realtors build their business by helping clients do this. I would say the one thing that's been consistent over all the years I've been in business is that there are people buying and selling rental properties in every market, right? Even when the market was bad in Phoenix, Arizona, people were buying investment properties. They were just tiny little loans was the problem, right? We had a big foreclosure market. So besides your book, what else would you recommend to somebody? Like, are there any resources you would tell them to go follow or read? Are there any videos they would watch, any classes they should take? How can they learn if they know nothing about this other than knowing what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's guidelines are?
Well, I'd say, why don't we just put on a class for them? But
all right, we can do that. All right, well, there's an action plan. We will do a webinar. I will announce it in the Mortgage Coach Group that Steve and I will host here in my office on this. So look for that in the next month. I'll commit us to 4 weeks out. Is that, you can do that?
Yeah.
All right.
Make it 5. I'm going on vacation.
Oh, all right, 5. We'll do it in the next 6 weeks. I'll give Steve some time to go travel the world. He's probably going somewhere fun.
Okay, so here's the #1 book that I would have you read, and Todd, you and I talked about this the other day.
Yep.
It's Robert Kiyosaki's book called The Cash Flow Quadrant, okay? I would have you read that book, and then secondly, I would have you get Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Game. So you can buy a board game, or you can do it online, but if you have the board game, and you start inviting your realtor friends over to play cash flow, and you have a regular cash flow game, and you invite people in, you will find that, now I have 4 of them right now, because I have people saying, hey, can I get in on the next game? Somebody told me it was awesome, okay? So those.
Hey, can I get on to the next game?
Yeah.
All right. I'm just laughing because I actually had a client of mine who actually paid for me and her realtor, who was a property manager at the time, to go to Kiyosaki's 3-day Rich Dad Poor Dad thing.
Here in town?
Yeah, and I actually own the game.
Uh-huh.
And I own the kids version. I've played the kids version with my kids, but I've never played the grown-up game. But, you know, there's a lot of real estate investing groups in your area, too. It's always worth looking into those. You have to be a little bit careful, because what I found was at the local one that I was part of, as it grew, there was 2 things that happened. 3 things happened. Number 1 is there was always knowledge there, and there were actual real great investors there, but then there was also people who came in to sell things, and then there was also people who were hopes and dreamers at the time. And so you have to be, you got to put your filter on of who are the people doing it. But I did meet agents there who wanted to build their business. I did meet clients there who wanted to invest. And so there are some other opportunities that way. So we're going to get cash flow. We're going to play cash flow. What else? We're going to read cash flow quadrant.
And so when you're playing cash flow, here's what I want you to do. Because most of the people don't know and understand, should I buy this one? Should I take advantage of this opportunity for this house or this duplex or for whatever the deal is? And so you can be the one helping them understand the value of that opportunity and taking advantage of it. You'll see how people play with money when you play that game. And once you play it, you'll know what I'm talking about.
I love it. I love it. So I see you there, Michelle. Did you have a question, or are you just popping your smiling face?
I was popping in just to say this is great. I mean, again, here I am taking notes, and I already bought the book Hold. It's, Amazon is great, so you can order it while you're talking. Yes.
All right.
So
if you like it, give me a review.
I will give you a review, and I like that because there's so many of my clients I know, especially the new ones coming in, when we talk about what they want to do, as part of our intake call, what's your future plans? And we talk about, do they want a 30-year fixed or an adjustable right now, depending on, if they're just trying to move up and want to use equity to move up. But a lot of them are talking about, I think I want to hold this as a rental property, because that's becoming more and more as these rates are still relatively low. In our world, we know it's relatively low. They can afford it and they can cash flow. And we talk about that. It's like, hey, if you want to hold on to this property, take a look at what your cash flow is. Your payment's now $3,200 a month, all inclusive taxes and insurance. Probably in 5 to 7 years, right now that rent's $3,000, but probably in 5 to 7 years, you're going to cash flow on this and create wealth for you.
Right. Especially, having done this for 40 years, one of the things that I've observed is rents always follow the interest rates. And so we're in a rising interest rate environment. So that even makes what you say even more likely.
Well, and what a great observation. And again, this is the kind of knowledge you guys need to have, right? That's why Michelle's $1 million producer, because she can do these things and then also learn from her example. She's buying the book and she's going to continue her education process, which I think is awesome. What percentage, Michelle, of your business is investment property?
Right now, it's probably not that much. I mean, we had so many people going into, retaining their homes, refinancing. A lot of my move-up buyers are needing the equity to move up. And then because we had such a jump in equity right now, over the last 5 years here in Southern California, they're actually taking that so that they can afford their new payment. So my buyers right now are in that 40 to 50 range. So they're looking at tailoring down instead of growing up. And, they're having families. So they want their payments. Everybody's focused on that payment right now of, oh my gosh, can I afford this payment the rest of my life? And I'm like, well, let's look at, I try to get them to look at other things, but sometimes this is what I don't want anything more than, I have one client right now that is literally taking every penny out of his bank so that his payment is only $2,700. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, it makes me cringe because I'm like, oh gosh, you can do so much more with that money, but that's what he wants. And I'm going to help him get there.
So here, guys, let's sort of just spitball this, and I'd love Steve's thought on it. And this is where, if you think about the language that Steve's been using, right? You want a mortgage strategist. You want someone who can help you manage your debt, a debt strategist. Think about all these words, and this is where understanding the rules really matters of the tax benefits. Most of you are already know what they are for a primary residence, but then you can talk to somebody, especially that person. You got to be a little careful. You don't want to talk a realtor out of their listing, right? So you always have to be careful of that piece of, hey, why don't you not sell your house that I know your realtor wants the commission on in order to buy your new house? But again, if you understand what the cash flow implications are, we had lots of times where people refinanced their current home as a non-owner, took out cash to get the down payment they needed to buy their primary residence, and figured out what rents were by interviewing the property manager, by understanding the market, understanding the tax benefits. I could build that model into Mortgage Coach for them to understand, okay, here's what your new mortgage on your rental looks like, and here's your rental income. And then over here, here's another Mortgage Coach with your primary residence options, so I can show them how to build their wealth, keep that property, and buy more. And, I've still got clients right now that my team manages that have, 10 plus properties that are managed. I own more than 10 properties myself. And so again, I learned how to do this early on, and it's kind of a fun thing to do when you've got clients who you helped, more than a decade ago, who now have actually built this wealth and are like, awesome, thank you, you helped me do this. Any other thoughts on that anything I missed?
Well, there's a statistic that was out about 3 years ago, and what they showed was the average American is financially illiterate, bottom line.
Well, I'm broke right now too.
And they just don't know what they don't know. And so one of the things that I've been teaching, and we talk about in the book, is it's important to help them have a conversation about ROI, the return on investment. It's interesting to me that people that have an IRA or a 401k, and they go, how's your 401k doing? Oh, it's great. It's up $3,000 or it's up $5,000. Well, what's your ROI? I don't know. Okay. And so when I show somebody, here's the ROI in this potential investment, what other investments do you have? And then you start to look at 5, 10, 15 years and what the difference is. And again, in the cash flow game, you'll see that that's one of the keys. And when you get the opportunity cards, is Robert Kiyosaki tells you what your ROI is. Okay. And most people don't pay any attention to that. So what I'm telling you guys is know and understand ROI, start having that conversation. There's a concept that people grow into the conversation you create around them. People will grow into the conversation you create around them. An impact question is, so what's the ROI on your investment? And if they don't know the answer to that question, that's a great way to help somebody start making something happen. And again, once you read the book or you start studying this and you start taking a look at Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant and all of that, you start thinking and talking in a different way, which makes you attractive to somebody rather than I have FHA, VA, whatever.
Well, and so just a couple of other points, right? I think all of you know ROI is return on investment, but I'll throw that out there. But again, as you think through these things, I could tell you that he said, well, yeah, maybe my 401k or IRA went up a few $1,000s. I can tell you that every month my renters are paying down my mortgages over $3,000. And so, again, you've got this. You got other people paying down that mortgage while the property's appreciating right now. Yeah, it was kind of ugly here in Arizona. I had 5 properties with negative equity for a long time that I had to get through, and they just broke even. But even while they broke even, the renters were paying down my mortgage over that time. Someone's asking if people are willing to give up their low owner-occupied rates. What I found was some weren't, because they had such a low rate. If you have 3.5%, are you going to want to get rid of it? And then others will, because they want the cash out of it, right? Again, it just depends on their mindset, right? Sometimes they'll get a second mortgage in there to pull that cash out before they, to use for the down payment. But I oftentimes found that, again, it's a numbers game, right? If you educate someone on ROI, if you educate them on the tax benefits, then they can make a determination for themselves. I tend to find that when people study this stuff, they become more comfortable with debt, right? Versus the people who are the opposite, right? Michelle just talked through a client who's probably a pretty smart person who says they're taking every penny they have to get a $2,700 payment. There are people who have that mindset that you won't be able to re-educate, but if you're educated enough that you can ask, use Steve's word from before, impact questions you can help people determine how they want to grow their wealth.
Well,
it's not for everyone, but it's for a lot of people.
Okay, so a couple things. If you invited that client that wants a $2,700 payment to pay cash flow, it might have a different perspective on it. Okay? But the only perspective they have is if I reduce my debt, I'm better off. And so instead of saying, how do I grow and increase my equities and increase my ROI? But the impact question for somebody because I've had that before. Gosh, I got this 3.875 interest rate and I don't want to lose that. And it's like, okay, so my impact question is, you know how the banks make money?
No, how, Steve?
They borrow your money at this rate and then they relend it at that rate. So if you could do what the bank does, even if you're paying 4.5% or 5%, but you could make 8%, would that be a good thing?
See, that's huge. And so all I'm thinking as Steve is talking this is that you need to work with a realtor like this guy, right? So you need to find the agents out there who are already experts in investment properties. That would be the place to start, but not everyone is. So then you're going to have to go along for the ride. Why not, call your handful of best agents and say, hey, I just saw this guy who wrote this book called Hold, talk about it, and I want to learn about it. If I buy you a copy, will you read it? And we have a book club around it. I mean, think of all the unique things that you can do as a business development tool and a self-education tool, because if you can get your agents to talk like he just talked, so instead of me being the one who's telling my client, yeah, go ahead and take a 0.5% higher interest rate, you've got a guy who's an expert who's telling his client why it's okay, and that just made my job as a loan officer 1,000 times easier.
And I didn't tell him I asked him a question.
Oh, I missed that. See?
Okay.
Okay. I'm excited now. So I'm going to take this into our, I get excited. I'm going to take this into our, so I love jam sessions. Let's take this into our annual reviews that we do. What if you were to take your annual review? Because I always put on my annual reviews, here's your return on your investment in just 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. So they know what happens if we were to say, gosh, you pull your realtor in that did that call and hey, Anna did such an amazing job. We did an amazing job put you in this position. Would you be interested in a conversation about what this looks like for you? Would this be something that we might be able to help you increase your wealth even more? Would that be a great Zoom call? Unfortunately, Southern California is so big, not a lot of them want to get in face-to-face. A Zoom call or a phone call or a meeting for coffee, maybe that would be something. And how incredible would that be for you to call your realtor and say, hey, I just set up a call with Mr. Derrico. We want to look at his ROI and his potential for investment.
Yeah, and you can do that with the property manager as well. That's a great idea.
Right, and so Kiyosaki talks about that, and Hold does too. It's by building your team. Steve mentioned it before, so think through that. I love the fact, Michelle, that you brought it back to annual mortgage review. Those of you who are in the Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind Facebook group, remember the Lori Richardson's annual mortgage review form is in files, and one of the things it asks about is your real estate hopes and dreams over the next, I think it's like 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5 years, and 5+ years. So oftentimes I found, because that was the same form that I used, that clients will say on there, yeah, I want to own a rental property. Yeah, I want to buy 3 more properties. And so again, be on the lookout for that, because again, once you've got that, then there's a lead, right? And so go back to where we started the call. How do I get in front of a realtor like Steve? If I can do my annual review, find someone who wants to buy or sell a home and call him back with it, I've gone full circle. So I never want to be like repeat myself over and over again, but I do think it's important to push these few key things that we talk about here in this community a lot, annual mortgage reviews, right? I mean, if you're not doing them, it's driving some of these other areas that we talked about today. So I'm happy to repeat and beat that drum, over and over again.
So there's a question up here and says, maybe what do you do besides just asking them, what do you do for fun?
Yeah.
Right. I'll bet you that most of the real estate agents have not had an annual mortgage review.
Ding, 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 right? Show them what you do and why. Because again, it's the same conversation that you would have with the property manager about their clients. It's basically what Steve said. He didn't use our terminology that we talk about, annual mortgage review. What he said is that would you have a realtor call their database and ask them if they refinanced, right? When a client might say, well, that's a weird question to ask, or a realtor might say, why would I say it that way? But when you rephrase it, right, hey, I would love to help your clients with annual mortgage review, and they say why, then you go back through what Steve talked about earlier.
Well, that'd be the second thing I would, if I was coming to you, Todd, and I would say, so tell me about why you're doing what you're doing, right? And then, by the way, you ever had a mortgage review? You ever looked at your mortgage?
I pay it every month.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope.
So let me show you what I do. Okay. Would you like me to do a mortgage review for you? And so I want you to experience the value that I'm going to bring to your clients.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And so someone's asking, where did I say that form was located? If you go, there's two ways to find it. It's in files in the Mortgage Coach Productivity, or the Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind Facebook group. There's a files piece on the left. You can also just search Lori Richardson Annual Mortgage Review in the search field of that group, and it'll pull it up. And there's lots of stuff in there. Just go in there and type Annual Mortgage Review, and you're going to see 50 plus posts and different videos that we've done on it. So it's a great.
And I'm going to tell you that real estate agents they struggle to come up with something to call their clients about. So it's like, oh, what am I? I already told them I'm in real estate, and so I'm going to disagree with something that Todd said. You don't get tired of saying the same message. See, when you're saying that same message over and over again, it's not even sinking in until after you're tired of doing it. And so don't worry about using another script. It's like, no, this is what I do. We add value to our people. This is what I do. And it has to be over and over again. That's what leaders do.
I love it. All right. See, and I got sharpened by a leader. That's what I said this guy was going to bring. So I'm super appreciative. I'm super appreciative of a lot of things. Number one is I think that Steve added a ton of value. I think he actually gave us some great opportunities and ways that we can talk to not just realtors now, but how we can approach some property managers. And then he gave us some strategies that we can use with our clients and for ourselves to grow wealth. Any last minute thing you want to throw out there, or any other homework assignments for this group with an action plan before we send them all off to go actually get busy and work?
One of my favorite sayings is that education without application is simply entertainment. So I would turn that thing around and say, put it up in the chat. What are you going to do based on what you just spent an hour listening to? What specific action are you going to take? And put it up on the chat thing. Let us know.
All right, there you go. That's your action plan. We got a couple minutes here. We're not going to jump off. Up in there, just go ahead and type in there what your specific action plan that you're going to do next, right? The first one of what you're going to do. If you want to even take it up a notch, say by when. And go ahead and put it here, claim it to the world and to all of us. Let's see this chat box get rolling. And then we'll have a couple follow-up things. Steve committed in the next 6 weeks, he and I are going to do a webinar. I'll announce it in here, and where we'll talk through hold. It'll probably be, how long do you think? 90 minutes? 60?
Yeah. 90
so
minutes.
So we'll do a 90-minute, and we'll get you guys on there. It won't be a Friday thing, but we will do it, and I will invite all of you. And we'll make sure that you guys get rolling with that. Already see some chat stuff rolling in, some thank you compliments to Steve. So super appreciative that he was here. As always, I think.
One said call
Michelle.
Realtors by next week. Get familiar with AMR. Call Realtors by next week. How many are you going to call?
Oh, there you go, Nancy. He's
Okay.
calling you out.
Let's be specific. How many are you going to call?
Yeah. So again, specificity is really the key, right? You remember those whole SMART goal things, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time sensitive. That's why I added the I when on there. I kind of like SMARTs too. Stretch yourself a little bit, right? So let's do it. So Will's getting on there. Nancy's calling at least 10. Let's like that. Let's push that a little bit.
Martha's already bought the book, so
we got people buying the book. That's
by the way,
awesome.
Just so you know, I'm not here to sell the book. I make 32 cents if you buy it, so it's not a big deal.
32 cents.
Right.
Woo! That's all right.
I make 32 cents if you buy it, but what could you make if somebody got a loan with you because you gave them the book? That's the reason why we did it.
Yeah, I think that's the key. And so, I always thank my guests. So I'm super excited to have Steve here. I always thank my co-host, Michelle, for showing up. But most importantly, I thank all of you, right? You guys have a choice what you do on Friday mornings. If you're watching this on YouTube later, you've got a choice with what you do with your time. And so appreciate you sticking around till the end. I appreciate all of the questions and the feedback and the comments, and look forward to seeing you online in our Facebook community, and look forward to seeing you here next week. So on behalf of Dave Savage and the whole crew at Mortgage Coach, myself, Todd Bookspan, and Win by Noon, thank you for being here. We'll see you soon.
Adios.